Welcome back to From Writer to Author, the podcast, the show that walks with you through every twist and turn of the writing and publishing journey, from inspiration to discipline, from self-doubt to breakthroughs, with a lot of honesty and just the right amount of sass. I'm Veronica G, and this episode is all about the delightfully bizarre writing rituals of some of history's most celebrated authors. And let me tell you, once you hear what they were up to, you'll feel like you're the most emotionally stable, perfectly normal writer on planet Earth. So grab a drink, settle in, and prepare to feel validated, because this episode is called Wait, Authors Do What? Let's dive in. The first author we're going to talk about is Maya Angelou, the hotel hermit with a purpose. Maya Angelou didn't just prefer writing in hotel rooms. She relied on them. She rented the same sparse hotel room day after day, year after year. She would bring a Bible, a legal pad, a deck of cards, and a bottle of sherry. That was it. No clutter, no distractions, not even a comfy desk. She wrote lying across the bed or sprawled on the carpet, the shades sometimes drawn, isolating herself from all comfort and familiarity. She said that home was too cozy, too filled with personal history. She needed a blank, neutral space to empty herself onto the page. And there's something powerful about that kind of ritual. A deliberate step away from your life so you can create stories that make life meaningful for others. The second author we're going to talk about is Victor Hugo, the naked procrastination assassin. Yeah, Victor Hugo had a procrastination problem so severe that he devised a system truly worthy of a novelist. He stripped naked and ordered his valet to hide his clothes so he physically could not leave the house. The logic was that if he couldn't go outside, couldn't socialize, couldn't be tempted to go to Parisian cafes or distractions, then he'd have no choice but to sit down and write The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's dramatic, it's very eccentric, and honestly, it's kind of genius. Hugo essentially said, if I can't be trusted with pants, then pants must be removed. And somehow that worked for him. The third author we're going to talk about is Agatha Christie, Murderous Ideas in a Bubble Bath. Agatha Christie took baths so long you'd think she was preparing for a mermaid role. Those hours submerged in warm water became her prime brainstorming sessions. With a plate of apples beside the tub, she'd take bites between plot twists, crunching away as she imagined new ways to kill fictional people. According to her, the combination of relaxation and sensory distraction helped her mind wander freely, the perfect state for a creative mischief. Honestly, if you ever wondered why her mysteries feel so cozy and yet chilling, imagine them being conceived by candlelight with prune fingers. The fourth author we're going to talk about is Truman Capote, the horizontal genius. Capote refused to write sitting up. Absolutely not. He was a horizontal artist. He hand-wrote drafts lying on his side in bed, edited while lounging on a couch, and only typed once he exhausted all possible relaxing surfaces in the room. He described himself as a completely horizontal author, as if vertical writing was a moral failing. And maybe there's something there. Maybe genius flows more freely when your spine is relaxed and your posture is medically inadvisable. If writing while horizontal was enough to produce breakfast at Tiffany's, maybe we all need to take more naps. Author number 5 is Friedrich Schiller, the rotten apple philosopher. Schiller believed inspiration came from the smell of rotting apples. Yes, actually decaying fruit. He stored them in his desk, letting them soften and collapse, their scent turning his study into something between a compost heap and a witch's pantry. His wife was horrified. Visitors were horrified. But Schiller insisted that the earthy, pungent aroma stimulated his creativity. Maybe it reminded him of the passing of time. Maybe it sharpened his senses. Or maybe, like many writers, he simply found comfort in chaos. Either way, masterpieces came out of that stinky room. So who are we to judge? Author number 6 is Dan Brown, the upside-down thinker. Imagine walking into Dan Brown's writing studio. Instead of seeing him seated at a desk, typing a suspenseful plot twist, you spot him hanging upside down in gravity boots like a bat doing deep thought. Brown said this inverted position helped him disperse stress and unlock fresh ideas. Whether the blood rush to his head improved his writing or merely made him dizzy enough to imagine new conspiracies, we'll never know. But there's something wonderfully symbolic in turning your world upside down so your imagination can set itself right side up. Author number 7 is Ernest Hemingway, writing like a soldier standing guard. Hemingway believed that sitting dulled the mind and weakened the prose. So he wrote standing up, leaning over a high shelf or a makeshift desk, shifting his weight from foot to foot like a watchman guarding a treasure chest. And in a sense, he was. He'd sharpen his pencils, pour coffee, and then plant himself upright to wrestle his minimalist sentences into existence. His writing style, clean, sharp, unfussy, almost feels like it grew from that physical discipline. He wasn't lounging. He was fighting for the right words. Author number 8 is Mark Twain. Pajama productivity on a legendary scale. Twain didn't just write from his bed. He lived in his bed. His writing days started and ended wrapped in blankets, propped up on pillows, in pajamas that rarely changed unless company forced him to act civilized. He hosted family members, held conversations, and sometimes greeted guests without leaving his bedroom. His wit, his humor, his storytelling, all of it happened in what was essentially a pillow fort. He created some of America's greatest literature while cozy under layers of quilts, proving once and for all that comfort and creativity can indeed be best friends. Author number 9 is Haruki Murakami, the marathon monk of modern literature. Murakami treats writing like an Olympic sport. Every morning he wakes up at 4 a.m. He writes for 5 or 6 uninterrupted hours, then runs 10 miles, swims, and spends the evening reading or listening to music. This routine repeats every day without fail for months while he works on a novel. He says the monotony conditions his mind to enter a deep, hypnotic state where the writing flows like water. His books feel like dreams because, let's be honest, this man is operating on the spiritual frequency of a meditating cheetah. Author number 10 is Charles Dickens, the master of the perfectly arranged desk. Dickens said he couldn't write unless everything on his desk was arranged exactly as he wanted. He kept specific figurines, a bronze snail, a small vase, a dog statue, lined up like a tiny cheerleading squad. His pens had to be positioned just so, the paper stacked at a perfect angle, and even the room had to smell right. Many writers fuss over their desks, but Dickens turned his into an altar. It wasn't just about aesthetics. It was about stepping into a ritual space where the muse felt welcomed and the chaos felt held at bay. Author 11 is Gertrude Stein, the roadside philosopher. While most writers pick a cozy indoor spot, Stein preferred writing while sitting in her parked Ford Model T or being driven slowly through the French countryside. She said the passing scenery offered just enough movement to stimulate her mind without distracting her. There's something romantic about that, a poet scribbling wildly while the landscape rolls by like a living canvas. Her partner, Toklas, would drive at a gentle chugging pace so Stein could absorb barns, trees, cows, and sky like fuel for her imagination. It was writing in motion, writing as travel, writing as life unfolding. Author number 12 is James Joyce, greatness written in giant crayon-like strokes. Now, Joyce was nearly blind for much of his career, so he wrote with enormous blue pencils on massive sheets of paper. He hunched inches away from the page, squinting like a detective studying a clue. The image is almost childlike. This towering literary mind bent over what looks like preschool art supplies. But there was nothing juvenile about the words. His giant scrawls held the seeds of Ulysses. He didn't just bend form and language. He bent the physical process of writing to his needs. Author number 13 is Edith Sitwell, Finding Peace in a Coffin. Sitwell kept a coffin in her home. not for decoration, but as a personal relaxation chamber. Before writing, she would climb inside, close the lid or leave it slightly ajar for air, and lie there for long periods. She said it calmed her mind and helped her detach from earthly concerns so she could write more freely. Say what you want, but there is something strikingly symbolic about confronting mortality before creating art meant to outlive you. Still, imagine being her house guest and stumbling across that one. Author number 14 is Philip Roth, the pacing professor of the writing room. Roth was known to write standing at a lectern, but what people often forget is the pacing, long, intense pacing. He'd write a few lines, step back, circle the room, mutter, rethink, rewrite, circle again. His writing sessions looked more like rehearsals for a dramatic monologue than typical typing. He worked with the full physicality of someone arguing with invisible colleagues. And honestly, that tracks. His characters have so much tension and introspection that you could practically feel the footsteps in every paragraph. Author number 15 is T.S. Eliot, the green-faced escape artist. Eliot had a clever trick to avoid unwanted interruptions. He dusted his face with a green powder that made him look sickly. Friends and co-workers would see him and say, "Oh my goodness, are you all right?" And he would nod mournfully and retreat to his writing desk. It was the introvert's dream, a built-in do not disturb sign. The fact that he was willing to tint himself like a Victorian ghost just to be left alone tells you exactly how serious writers are about protecting their creative time. Author number 16 is Honoré de Balzac, the man who was 50% coffee. Balzac drank so much coffee that modern medical professionals would have him on a watch list. He claimed it gave him violent sparks of inspiration. He wrote throughout the night, sometimes for 15 or 20 hours straight, fueled entirely by darkness and caffeine. He described his mind as on fire, which, considering the intake, is probably literally true. You can almost picture him vibrating in place, commas shaking off the page. Author number 17 is Virginia Woolf, writing in an upright current of thought. Woolf believed that ideas flowed better when she stood, that the body needed space to keep the mind sharp. She wrote at a specifically built tall desk so she could move her weight from one foot to the other, almost like she was dancing with her ideas. And in many ways she was. Her prose is fluid, rhythmic, almost tide-like. You can see how writing while upright, shifting and swaying, might have given her words their signature motion. Author number 18 is Jack Kerouac, the scroll-fueled sprint. Kerouac famously taped together long strips of paper until he had a single scroll stretching over 100 feet. For 3 feverish weeks, he typed without inserting new paper because he believed stopping would break his flow. It wasn't laziness, it was momentum. The scroll let him pour thoughts out in one continuous rush, capturing the spontaneity he became famous for. The scroll itself is now legendary, a testament to what happens when you refuse to let life's little pauses interrupt the wildness of creation. And last but not least, author number 19 is Sir Walter Scott, Poetry in Motion, literally. Scott dictated poetry while riding his horse. He'd ride for hours across the Scottish countryside, occasionally pausing to shout stanzas into the wind so his assistant could jot them down. The rhythm of the horse's gait, the fresh air, and the open landscape, all of it fed his creativity. Imagine the neighbors hearing heroic couplets drifting over the hills, accompanied by the sound of hooves. Riding and horseback riding at the same time takes multitasking to a whole new level. So I need to ask you, after hearing all that, how do your personal quirks look now? If your weirdness is needing a candle, or wanting a certain playlist, or writing better late at night, or needing coffee, but not 50 cups, or talking to your characters, or setting the thermostat at a precise temperature, you're not just normal, you're downright boring in comparison to these guys. And that's a beautiful thing. Your rituals don't need to be dramatic, cinematic, or Instagram-worthy. They just need to usher you into the state of mind where the writing happens. Your process is valid because it works for you, not because anyone else understands it. So before we wrap up, remember to grab your free pre-publishing roadmap, 14 ways to make sure your manuscript is ready for publishing. The link is in the show notes. And also sign up for the From Writer to Author newsletter at goldspielcreativeenterprises.com for your weekly boost of motivation, guidance, and insider publishing wisdom. Both links are waiting for you below. Until then, keep writing, keep embracing your quirks, and remember, you're not strange, you're a writer.